Imagine it's Friday night. Your phone lights up with a group chat message. We're heading out. You coming? And something inside you just deflates. Not because you don't like these people, not because you're depressed, not because anything is wrong with you, but because of the idea of putting on shoes, getting in a car, standing in a loud room full of people, trying to hold conversations over music you didn't choose, spending money on drinks you don't really want. It all sounds genuinely exhausting, almost painful. And the idea of staying home, of your couch, your lighting, your silence, your control, sounds like the most beautiful thing in the world. So you say you're tired, because I just really don't want to somehow never feels like enough of an explanation. But here's what most people don't realize, and this is the part that changes everything. That feeling isn't laziness. It isn't social anxiety. It isn't a character flaw you need to work on. For a specific group of people, that pull toward home is a deeply wired neurological and psychological preference, and the science behind it is far more interesting than anyone ever told you. Now, before we go further, I want to be clear about something. Not everyone who loves staying home is the same. In fact, psychologists would broadly separate them into a few very different groups, and which one you fall into reveals something important about how your brain is actually built. The first group are people who feel genuinely, physically energized by solitude, not just comfortable with it, powered by it. These aren't people who are hiding from the world, they're people who have discovered, usually through years of trial and error, that their best thinking, their best mood, and their best self emerges when they have control over their environment. If this sounds like you, there's a specific neurochemical reason for it, and we'll get to that in a moment. The second group are people who don't necessarily dislike social settings, but who experience the outside world at a significantly higher volume than most people. A busy restaurant isn't just busy to them, it's loud lighting, competing smells, overlapping voices, temperature discomfort, constant micro-decisions. It's a lot. Home isn't where they hide, it's where they recover. Their body is essentially running a more demanding operating system, and it needs more time to recharge. And then there's a third group, and this one nobody really talks about. These are people who have consciously, deliberately built their home into something extraordinary, not just comfortable, curated, meaningful. They've invested time, money, and deep personal thought into making their home their absolute favorite place on earth. For them, going out isn't just tiring, it's genuinely less appealing than what they've built at home. Staying in isn't a retreat, it's a preference, a statement, almost an art form. Most people assume all three of these groups are the same. They're not, and understanding which one you are, or which combination, is where the psychology gets genuinely fascinating. Let's start with neuroscience, because this is the part that tends to stop people mid-thought. Most of us were raised with a vague cultural message that extroverts are the social default, that going out, being seen, being loud and social, that's the baseline of a healthy human life. Staying home, by contrast, gets coded as passive, avoidant, even a little sad. But psychologists and neuroscientists have discovered something that dismantles that assumption completely. Your brain runs on reward pathways, and not everyone runs on the same one. Extroverts, generally speaking, are highly responsive to dopamine, the neurochemical associated with novelty, external stimulation, excitement, and social reward. A loud party, a new city, a crowd of strangers, these are dopamine delivery systems. The extroverted brain lights up in those environments. It feels good there. But a significant portion of the population runs primarily on a different pathway, the acetylcholine pathway. Acetylcholine rewards internal stimulation, deep thinking, quiet focus, familiar comfort, calm environments where the brain can actually do its best work without being pulled in 17 directions at once.
For someone on the acetylcholine pathway, a quiet evening at home with a good book, a clean space, and zero social obligations isn't the absence of pleasure, it is the pleasure. The brain is literally being chemically rewarded for exactly that experience. So when someone says going out to a loud bar feels like manual labor, but staying in feels like a physical high, they're not being dramatic. They are accurately describing their neurochemistry. You aren't broken for wanting to stay in. Your brain requires a completely different type of fuel to feel good. And for a long time, nobody told you that was a valid option. Here's where things get a little more complicated, and this is the part that explains the second group. In the 1990s, psychologist Dr. Elaine Aron introduced a concept that has since changed how we understand a large portion of the population, the highly sensitive person, or HSP. Her research found that roughly 15 to 20% of people have a nervous system that processes sensory and emotional information far more deeply than average. Not worse, not broken, just more. More detail, more depth, more data being processed per second. For an HSP, the outside world isn't just busy, it's genuinely overwhelming in a way that non-HSPs struggle to fully understand. The flickering of fluorescent lights, the feeling of a crowd pressing in from all directions, overlapping conversations that the brain insists on trying to track simultaneously. Temperature shifts, social energy, the sheer input of existing in a public space. Home for the HSP is not laziness, it's biological necessity. Think of it this way. If your nervous system were a processor, the HSP is running at significantly higher processing power on every single input. That is incredibly useful in many ways. HSPs tend to be deeply empathetic, highly creative, and extraordinarily perceptive. But it comes at a cost, and the cost is sensory depletion. When an HSP says, "I don't hate people, I just have a very limited social battery, and once it's drained, I become physically exhausted," what they're describing is real. The home is quite literally the charging station, not because they're antisocial, because their nervous system demands a controlled environment to reset. If you've ever felt genuinely tired in ways you couldn't fully explain after being in social or stimulating environments, not emotionally tired, but physically tired, deep in the body tired, that's worth sitting with for a moment. Now here's the deeper psychological reveal, and this is the part that tends to resonate most. Environmental psychology, the field that studies how our physical spaces affect our mental states, has a concept called place attachment. It describes the emotional bond that forms between a person and a meaningful space. And for people who love staying home, this bond isn't passive or incidental. It's constructed, intentional, almost sacred. These are the people who think carefully about what goes on their walls and why, who invest in the right lighting because they know how it affects their mood, who have a specific chair, a specific corner, a specific routine that signals to their nervous system, "You are safe here, you are yourself here, nothing is required of you here." The home for these people is not just shelter, it is an external extension of their inner world, a physical representation of who they are and what they value. Some psychologists describe it as an external hard drive for the mind, a space that holds and reflects your identity back to you. And when you've spent real time and real care building that space, the question stops being, "Why don't you want to go out?" The question becomes, why would I pay $20 for a cocktail somewhere uncomfortable when I've already built paradise? That's not antisocial behavior, that's emotional intelligence applied to physical space. And this brings us to something that has shifted quietly but significantly in recent years. For a long time, the cultural conversation around missing social events was dominated by FOMO, the fear of missing out. Social media amplified it into a near constant anxiety. Everyone else's Friday night looked better than yours. Everyone else seemed to be out, connected, alive, experiencing something you weren't. But a psychological counter-movement has emerged that researchers and cultural observers have started calling JOMO, the joy of missing out. JOMO isn't apathy. It isn't depression dressed up as contentment. It's a conscious, psychologically grounded rejection of the idea that being out is inherently superior to being in.
It's the quiet satisfaction of knowing that the world outside is loud and complicated and expensive and exhausting, and choosing, deliberately and happily, not to participate tonight. Putting your phone on Do Not Disturb at 7 on a Friday evening, making something warm to eat, settling into exactly the space you want to be in, doing exactly what restores you, and feeling genuinely, deeply like you made the right call. That's not a consolation prize. For the homebody, that is the main event. Society spent decades telling you it wasn't. So here's what I want you to take away from this. If you're someone who loves staying home, really loves it, not just tolerates it, you are not failing at being a social person. You are succeeding at understanding yourself. Your brain may be running on a neurochemical reward system that genuinely thrives in quiet and depth rather than noise and novelty. Your nervous system may be processing the world at a level of detail that makes retreat not a preference, but a biological need. Your home may be one of the most psychologically meaningful spaces you've ever built, and protecting it, investing in it, choosing it makes complete sense. None of that is avoidance, none of it is fear, and none of it requires an explanation to anyone who asks why you didn't come out last night. You may simply understand something that most people spend their whole lives chasing: the difference between a life that looks good from the outside and a life that actually feels good from the inside. And you found it, quietly, at home. If this resonated with you, if you recognized yourself somewhere in this video, I'd love to know which part hit hardest. Drop it in the comments below. And if you know someone who always says they're tired when they cancel plans, share this with them. They might just need someone to finally explain what's actually going on.